welcome to the panel. There's lots about pricing, the complexities of it related to how you price in the market, whether it's against the market or the competitors or on cost or other ways that you'll know or tried. There's also lots of things that can go wrong when you price, particularly if you're going into multi-channel or if you're exporting. And with the changing of the world over the last 25 years and the last 10 and even last 5 with regard to multi-channel, omni-channel, the prevalence of the internet and pricing for promotions over the course of the year, these are all things that will affect how you price or the margins that you achieve. We're going to talk about some of those things today, the things that build up your pricing, the pitfalls you face, and considerations with regard to those promotions over the course of the year. In our context today, we deal with more professional or purely professional as opposed to multi-channel retail brands. So professional brands where our customers are the salons or the spas. Okay. Let's start with the first question in regard to what do you think about, what should brands think about when they begin to price? Let's start with Corinne.
I think this is one of the most important questions, actually, Glenn, what you're asking me. This is one of the most important thoughts that we have to do. I mean, if you have a product and you want this product, it has to be good on the formulation, on the idea, on the marketing. The next step is your price. And this is the first thing that you have to think about: who will be buying my product? Who will be my consumer? And this is what I'm facing most of the time when I meet brands. But some of the time, they don't know who is the consumer. So it's something that is, for me, the first step that we have to do. Who will be my consumer? Where do I want to put my product? And after that, everything is coming down. So this is, I think, the first thing that we have to do.
Pierre-Louis?
So the first step is to take an aspirin because it's a headache. Why it's a headache? Because there are 3 conflicting forces and you will have to navigate between them. One is, of course, the consumer pricing. How do you position your brand to the end consumer in every market? The second one is your business model. Who are you going to sell to in order to get the product in the hands of the end customers? And you have to make sure that every step of your distribution model has enough margin. Okay? Otherwise, they will not work with you. And the third one is, as you are saying, the fact that prices are now more and more visible, can be compared. So you have to have some kind of consistency across countries and regions, provided you want to go international. So when you think about those 3 components, everyone has its own logic and has to be considered. But at the end of the day, the equation is not easy to solve. And of course, at the center, you have the profitability. Okay, so my personal advice would be to make sure that you have covered all those areas and be ready to make some trade-off. Okay, because there is no perfect solution where you will tick all the boxes, doesn't match, doesn't work. But what is very important is that you are very clear about the trade-off you are making, the decision you are taking, and eventually the profitability you are ready to work with, considering those constraints.
Thank you. I think on pricing, it is the most important thing when building out your model. I was very interested in the last session, actually. The gentleman sat in the middle was very much in control of his own pricing, because the way we've done it with electric, and we manufacture a professional hairdressing brand here in the UK. We have a farm down in East Sussex where we formulate everything ourselves. We buy our own raw materials, and we've even started to grow some of our own ingredients as well. The world's obviously a volatile place, and it has been for the last, seems like forever now, a few years anyway, since all of the COVID disruptions. But you know, we started manufacturing in 2010, and it was quite plain sailing for the first few years. And just the price fluctuations in raw materials, packaging, you know, everything going up can cause all sorts of problems. So I think an element of trying to control your own, being able to achieve your own pricing is I think, key. Certainly key in an independent business. And it, from a consumer point of view, it is that old cliche of knowing who you're selling to. And if your production costs are fluctuating, ultimately it comes out in your end retail price. So you've got to think, well, is that fluctuation allowed, is there room for it in your marketplace? And I completely agree what you were just saying here. You've got to allow for that there has to be enough margin at every point. That's something in the last couple of years as well we've found difficult. We export about 70% of our product to the US, well, North America, US and Canada. We've learned a couple of hard lessons with that. In certain arrangements haven't had enough margin in, and we've had to change them. So that would be my experience on pricing.
Thank you. When you've heard our panelists talk about looking at the end consumer or the consumer of the products, the challenge you have is that once you've established a price at the consumer level, it's very difficult to change it again if you've made a mistake in your pricing. This is the complexity that Pierre-Louis talks about. What are the pitfalls when you're working through pricing that might affect you short and long term? Let's start with Pierre-Louis.
Well, first, very basic advice. It's always easier to drop your price than to increase it. Okay, so if you hesitate or you have something you are not clear about, you better overprice than underprice, because otherwise it will be too late. One of the big challenge, I think, for pricing is that every company is starting with its own market, okay, national market. And usually, when you start in your own market, you do the distribution yourself, okay? And normally, you have good margin, okay? When you start with your own country, you have good margin. Then, of course, as you start expanding internationally, then you have to share that margin with other partners, distributors to start with, because usually companies, when they start their expansion, they don't always start with opening subsidiaries, okay? So one of the big challenges is that when you expand, one of the mistakes that can be made is that you are used to a certain gross margin, and you want to keep that gross margin. So you tend to calculate how much you will sell to your partner, and then you end up with a customer price that might be completely different from your home base consumer price. And then starts the problem, because then you have parallel trade, or you have the risk of parallel trade. And then you have the risk of also, with the prices visible on internet, people or consumers not really understanding what is your positioning. Okay, you can be masstige in your home country, and you become luxury in another country. What's your strategy? What's your positioning? So one of the big challenge and mistake is, even when you start in your country, you have to have a vision of, do you want to expand one day, and take that into account even in the pricing in your national country, or accept that your expansion will be at a higher cost and lower margin. And that's one of the challenges.
I would rather continue on what you say, actually. The first point that you point out of a pricing positioning too low or too high, I think what happens to a lot of brands is they're even scared about their price. So they think about price, and they think, okay, if I put a screen of 200 euro, will I buy it? And this is something that you have to go away from it and think about, okay, this is the price, I want to be there. I met few brands that are really scared about their own price. They just say, no, but it's too expensive, I will never buy it. So this is something, and going back to what he said also, the second point is, when you have this problem, when you start to believe and to want to go to export, because if you don't do international sales, you don't have quantities. I mean, if you stay in your market, when you have a big market, like France, or for me, for example, Germany, it's a big market, so you get quantities, but after a while, you need to go outside because you need to increase the quantities. Then you have this calculation situation about the margin and all the different prices. And in some countries, before you could put a price, say 20, 30, 50% more than in your home country. Now it's finished. You have internet, everybody sees the prices everywhere. You see it even in Europe. I mean, you see it from Germany to France to Finland. You cannot make big differences in the prices outside. And the second question is, if you higher the price in another country, is the marketing that you're providing absolutely in the same picture than your brand, the price of your brand? And if it's not like this, you have facing problems because your distributor cannot sell the product with the marketing you are providing. So you're getting in a big situation, and so the fact is you have to think about at the beginning, really at the beginning, do I want one day to go outside of my home country? Or even say, I start only outside, I don't start in my own country. But you have to think about this and to think all the calculation on the different prices. And I see a lot of brands, we don't even know the difference between the 4 or 5 different prices that you can have. So this is something that is very important to think about. And the margin, sure.
Thank you. Mark?
Just going back to the risks involved, I think, as you mentioned, parallel trade's a huge risk once prices start becoming different in each place. And it's so easy, if you have in one country you might have an importer and a distributor, there might be several points of contact before it gets to the end consumer. And that can bring out a different retail price. So I think being aware of the risks that come with that, and knowing which market you're in, as you were saying before, if you are a premium brand and all of a sudden in another country you end up at the high end of luxury, it's a completely different strategy, marketing strategy, route to market, route to consumer, everything changes. And it's funding that, so I think being aware of the risks are probably the most important things.
Those risks are many and varied, and there are various factors in there. For example, the personal bias thing, where the founder or the company or the brand decides this is the price we're going with because that's what we would buy it at. It's not always about you, it's about the consumer and what the consumer will pay. And as Pierre-Louis and Mark talk about, where you position yourself in the market, are you luxury, are you premium, and so on. When you look at those and who the brands are in that element or in that range, and you're pricing according to them, then it's a little bit easier to take. My brand is strong enough to be able to compete against these, therefore my price should be higher. The other risk, of course, is pricing and doing it once and letting it go. Pricing isn't static. We've got to review it every quarter, every 6 months, every year, regardless of when we're going to make adjustments.
There is an interesting example with not at all in the beauty industry, but when the Japanese car makers started in the 80s to expand internationally, they had a very smart financial reasoning, which is, we have a very strong home base, okay, so all the fixed costs, let's keep them in our local calculation for the pricing, and let's when we export, only calculate our margin on variable cost, okay. This has given them a lot more flexibility and, in a way, aggressivity to start expanding internationally with a very good value for money perception from the consumers of the Japanese cars. Okay, so again, you have to be a little creative about how do you see your business, how do you see your business expansion. And again, it can look as a trade-off, but at the end of the day, and they were pretty successful at that time, when do you get the volume internationally, at the end of the day, you are a much bigger company, much bigger brands, with much bigger profits, maybe not in percentage, but in absolute value, which is also very important.
Mark and Pierre-Louis referenced parallel trading, and a company that you're all familiar with, Apple, has a world price that around the world, when you travel from one country to another, Apple prices don't vary more than 5 to 10%. At consumer level. So in your own brand, when you look around the world, wherever you peg, you've got to decide, where am I competing, how am I competing, and is it a problem if my prices vary in the United States versus the UK versus China? because these things ultimately affect where your products get sold, whether by you or somebody else.
Just to follow on from that, I mean, Apple's an excellent example. And going back to, there are so, at the other end of the scale, if we talk about craft manufacturers and people starting out, you're in control of your own purchasing. And, as I mentioned at the beginning there, Apple, if you look, they're a brilliant example because the reason they can maintain the price internationally is because they control the route to market. They're sold predominantly to the consumer through their own stores or through their own e-commerce platforms. And anybody who's a reseller, and they call them resellers, they're heavily managed by Apple. So there isn't anybody that can fluctuate their price. And the reason for that is the brand's so powerful. And the reason the brand's so powerful is they've got billions of dollars to make it powerful.
Thank you, Mark. Let's talk about the changing world and the internet. The last probably 7 to 10 years has seen the internet become very prevalent in many strategies and in route to market. One of the challenges or complexities of the internet over the last few years are the numbers of promotions that we see over the course of the year. Amazon Day, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Singles Day, Family Day, Spring Promotion. All of these have some effect on how we price. What's your impression and thought about how you manage or participate in these promotions? Corinne?
I mean, personally, I don't like it. And I don't advise brands to do it because I think it's not good. I think it's when you have a product and you have a price, always to go on promotion and to make it cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. It's not good for your products. You give a feeling that it could be something else. So I think it's important if you have a price and you have fixed a price, keep this price. Why should you change it over time? I mean, it's something completely crazy. So I think what you can do, you can play with your product. You can say, okay, the price is this, and I give you something with my product. Because I think this is something that you add on your product. But to change the price is for me something that I think no. I mean, as a consumer, sometimes I'm buying stuff and I say, okay, now it's half the price, I will take it, but it's on sales. So it's something after the season and the product is afterward. But looking always for this kind of stuff, Black Friday, I think for the brand image, it's not good.
So value added rather than price promotion.
Absolutely, for me, yes.
Mark?
Well, we have quite a unique way of looking at that because our model is that predominantly our customers are high-end hair salons and high-end hairstylists. So we're looking for them to carry our brand as a retail partner, as a stockist. We have a route to direct to the consumer through our own e-commerce platform, and we only work with a small handful of retailers. We work with Sephora and we work with a department store here in the UK, Harvey Nichols. And we're saying to the majority of our customers, look, this will not appear online discounted in any way, and we're that's one of our core values. We're expecting a top-end hairdresser to recommend our product to their clients, so we want to give them the opportunity of. So the last thing we want to do is discount. However, I think things like Black Friday and Cyber Monday have become such culture. Everyone expects it. Consumers expect it. Other competitors expect it. Everybody expects. So we look at those things as putting a good offer together and our product reaching new hands. If there's an offer, and I completely agree with what you're saying. The last thing you want to do is discount your product. But because those things have become such culture, it is quite a nice way of saying, just, here's an offer, and it's going to get into some new hands. And if you're confident in the performance of your product, hopefully there's repeat purchase in that.
How do you work with your partners in that situation?
Well, we're very transparent. My background, where I've come from, I am a hairstylist. I've been one for 30 odd years, so we're very loyal to the industry. We're very our ethics are, hey, we're not gonna sell out. We're gonna our salon owners that buy our product. We want them to feel like they're being part of something, and we want them to feel like there's some sort of advantage of being our partner, and you know, they're going to get that benefit by selling it to their customers.
Pierre-Louis, same question.
I mean, you are right that those heavy events are a good opportunity to recruit and to be visible. Personally, we strongly believe that, I mean, promotion is like a drug. So the first time there is a lot of excitement, then you get addicted because the year after you will need to do it again. And long term, it can completely destroy your brand and your business model. So that's the theory. Practically, it's not easy, even if you have that vision, to put that in place. First, because, for instance, in Europe, your partners are free to do what they want with price and promotion. So the real challenge is to have, as much as possible, a controlled network, not too wide, because then if you have a controlled network, then you can share your vision on promotion and agree that maybe short term it will be an opportunity, but long term it could destroy your business. Okay, and if you have too many partners at one stage, it goes out of control and out of hand. So as you said, the reason why Chanel, Apple, etc. Are so successful with controlling their price image with no promotion is just because it's very easy for them. They control their distribution. In our business, usually it's small businesses. Okay, we don't have all of our subsidiaries in every country. We work with partners and distributors, and we don't have our own access to B2C. Okay, because it's very expensive and it's a strategy that we want to have over time. But most of the medium-sized companies, they don't have that. So that's one of the challenges. The problem with promotion is once you have started, it's black and it's black, in my opinion, it's black or white. Because once you have started, why, if you have done it once, why not doing it twice, 3 times? So sometimes the easier is to say never. And it's not because you say never that it doesn't happen, but at least you are very clear with your kind of sales strategy with your partners. And over time, they understand the logic and they see the benefit. Because you might lose some business short term, but you might gain long term in terms of image and consistency of your positioning. The other issue with pricing is what is the price of a product? What is the price of a cream? With your positioning, your communication, the quality of the product, you establish a price in consumer mind. They might find it good or bad, but if the price is starting to make a yo-yo, then what's the price? In a way, the price of your product becomes the lowest available, not the price that you want the product to be at in an ideal situation. So, as I said, aspirin is required because it's not an easy topic.
I think it's a question of image also. It's a big question of image. I think if you want to be in a certain level, or if you want to be down, I mean, it's not bad to have cream of 10 euro. But it's an image question after a while. So if it's changing over time, it's not good for the brand. And what I wanted to add on what he said on with your distributors, because you're not controlling your price, but it's a question again of margin. I think if your distributor is happy with the margin he has, if he has good conditions, if a price is a good calculation, he will understand your strategy, and he will be doing promotion. He will understand, okay, I have a good margin, and if I follow what the main brand or what the mother brand is saying, and if I work like this, and if I do money, and they do money, everybody is happy. So we are back again on this calculation story about what is the price positioning and what are the different levels when you are working with a distributor or going directly, because this is most of the time what is happening, is that the brands forget that there is people in between, and even in some countries you have a registration, etc., etc. So there is overstep, overcost that you have to calculate. So this is an issue over time, actually.
Absolutely. That partner, your distributor, the person who sells for you in the other country, has to be a true partner. We used to talk about it in our world that if you're not willing, or if you'd never invite your partner to have dinner with you, he shouldn't be your partner. That trust, that bond, that understanding of what this brand is about is so important, because all these issues become second nature about how the brand is presented, what price it should be, where it's positioned in the market, and what it should sell for. Take that along with your partners who are the professionals. Every time we make a decision regarding our pricing affects them and their margins. So the things we do as a brand are very important in our whole ecosystem, in our whole family. Talk to us about some advice you would give to a new brand or an up-and-coming brand about how they address pricing.
This one's to me. I feel like we're still learning ourselves. But I think starting out, the thing I believe is know who you are and what you do and exactly what it is you're selling and who to. I think when we set out with electric, our strengths were we already had a good industry reputation. We built a successful salon group. We built a successful education and creative business. So for us, making a quality product people could trust was important. That was quite a learning curve. But I think it's when you look back maybe after 10 or 15 years what your journey has been about. It is about knowing your customer and trusting your own instincts in what you're selling, believing in what you do as well, because there are some inevitable highs and lows of running any business. And the thing it's probably the steepest learning curve for me was a manufacturing business, and we manufacture the product ourselves as well. That was a complete unknown for us, and I think we partnered with people that we knew and trusted, and we're still working with today. But it was a steep learning curve. As I said, I came from the hairdressing industry. Owning hair salons well, that has its ups and downs as well. But the thing about it is, a customer comes in and pays there and then. I learned a lot about manufacturing the product, and then 30-day terms, 60-day terms, and that's in your own territory. And then, when we started exporting the product, and just the opportunity came with North America first to export the product. And you're shipping something that's 5 weeks away, and we were shipping to a warehouse in California originally, and we found the product took off quicker on the East Coast, and there was this unbelievable logistical journey that caused a few sleepless nights and interesting times. But that is the thing. I think understand what it is you're selling, where you're pitching it, and who you're selling it to. Then devote your life to it.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Pierre-Louis?
Well, first of all, I think if you want to tick all the boxes that we talked about, you have to accept that when you start your international expansion, you have to accept that your margin will be lower. Okay. And then one day, as it takes off, provided you have the right partners internationally, provided they earn good money from you, and that's very, very important. One day, the logic will be that you will integrate. Okay, you will buy them back, or you will start your own subsidiary, and then you will get the benefit of that investment for some years. So it's very important, if you really want to have a consistent pricing across region or countries, and you want to expand internationally, that you accept to really lower your profitability or margin. The reality is that in the distributor model, what is very positive is that whatever the margin you will make with your distributor, it almost goes down to the bottom line. Okay, you have very little additional, you have some additional cost, of course, but not that much. All the marketing and sales costs will be on him. So it's important that he has good margin, and basically it will generate some good bottom line for you, provided you have the right partner. So you really need to be smart in your vision. Do you want to expand or not? Do you have a strong home base? And then accept to do some compromise. and making sure that your end consumer price has ideally a bracket of 20-25% maximum in the different countries where you are. Because this is actually, when you look at the big guys, this is what they all have. You know, the big companies, they manage to have a consumer price which is around 20%, 25% different maximum between countries, which is not so easy because sometimes you have a lot of shipment costs, you have import duties, etc., etc. So you have to accept that maybe in some countries, to start with, you will make very low margin when you export.
I will stick actually to what you say, and I think also that the most important, what I would say to somebody, because I meet a lot of people that are creating new brands, and a lot of new young brands are coming to me, and they are in the market somewhere in France or somewhere else, and when I look at them, and I look, they have a nice marketing, they have a nice product, and when we go deep into the pricing situation, then it's going to really be a problem, mostly. So I think this is something, really you have to, when you create your brand, when you go on the market, think about where do you want to be in the future? Where you want to be in 5 years, in 10 years, in 15 years. And what he said is absolutely happening a lot of time. If you have a good distributor, or if it's not good, but if it's good, you will take it over. So you have to think about the investment on the long term and what is happening with your brand. And there is nothing worse for the brand when you come into a country. I saw it, a lot of brands coming from countries to Germany, and they change distributors every 3 years, another one, and another one, and another one. It's dead. The brand is down because every time all these changes are really bad for the brand because you have new people coming, you have new people involving, they have another strategy. So this is something you have to really think about it. Where do you want to be? And this is mostly when you create a brand, I think you are a creative person. So you are completely in your products, in your ideas, in the marketing, etc. And you forget the side that is not so funny is the part of margin and price and also cash flow. Because this is also an issue that all the young brands are facing most of the time. They are facing the cash flow situation. So this is something, think about it. I know it's not funny and it's not lovely, but it's the reality at the end of the day.
So you've heard being customer-centric or thinking about being generous to your distributor or your partner, because in the long term, that benefit or how happy your partner is going to translate in how motivated that they're going to be for you. You've heard that in the last two sessions as well. We'll turn it over to you with a few minutes left of any questions you might have of our panelists.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Minna Laakkonen, and I'm a distributor and a wholesaler, so I want to challenge you guys a little bit here. And about the pricing, what comes to the... I'm come from Nordic countries, from Finland, and nobody buys cosmetics anymore with the normal price. There is always whatever campaign going on, and we are saying that the cosmetics are campaign and novelty driven businesses. So what do you do that if you are a distributor, and I'm working with the retailers, mainly the department stores, hypermarkets, so what do you do that your client, department store chain, tells you that if you don't participate in these particular campaigns, you are out, because most of the sales are coming from there. And then we, as a distributor, we really need our suppliers' help with this, and we usually share the discount we have to give to our clients, because end consumer doesn't buy the product otherwise if it's only the normal price. Plus, the products won't, or the brand won't show in advertising in that case if you don't participate in that.
Well, to be honest, it really depends on your brand positioning, and that's why, personally, I think it's much easier to be as premium as possible, as luxury as possible, with the most limited distribution as possible. I know it's not always easy, because then you aim at the toughest part of the market, maybe. In our case, and we work with very few department stores that are always providing treatments, okay, just to make it clear, so we are never in pure retail. But in our case, we make it clear from the beginning that we will not participate. Okay, and it's part of the deal. And if they don't accept, then we don't work with them. Okay, because once you have started working, it's difficult to step back because you have some turnover. At least when you have zero turnover and you say no, you don't lose anything. You lose maybe an opportunity, but you don't lose any business. So we make it very clear with them that we never participate to those campaigns. Okay. The only thing we have to accept is that sometimes they have loyalty cards, okay, where they can apply some kind of reduction on any product in the store, and that we accept because in a way the consumer will choose which brand they want to apply their price reduction. But apart from that, we never participate. And as long as the deal is clear from the beginning on both sides, of course, as long as your turnover in the department store is good, they understand. They can understand. Now, again, it goes back to we are not working with all the department stores. We are working on a very selective choice of department store, which might also help the negotiation and the discussion. So our case is a little special, so I'm not sure I can really help you in your question, which is a very valid question.
I think also there is a difference, Mina, because I think some brands in the meanwhile, some department store, they want to have you. So you are in another position also. So I think this is also something that you can play on. But I know your problems because we know each other quite a long. And I know that it's always the issue you are facing in some department stores in Finland and in other countries in the north. But I think what you say, I think is for sure when you communicate at the beginning, we don't do it. Then it's down. And it's a situation, it's something that you have decided. It's a decision that you have taken. Okay, we don't go, we don't do it. So either you want the brand or you don't want the brand. That's it.
I think it's a sign of the times as well that the store model, the bricks and mortar store model, has changed because e-commerce has come along. But, you know, if I go back 20, 30 years in the UK, the consumer model of hair products was to, you know, the hairdresser would build their own profile and then they'd hit the Boots the Chemist model, you know, the high street store model, and that's you know how a lot of people did very well. That's a difficult one to crack now because of this participate in promotions and events, and so it tends to not be the way new brands go. A new brand today, you'd expect them to have their own e-commerce platform, their own social media purchasing platform, and to do it all with influencers, and they would be the retailer. I think that's new brands starting off, and I think, you know, as Pierre-Louis was saying, you know, if a brand is strong enough, they can dictate to the department stores and the retailers what they will and they won't do. But for new brands starting off, that's tricky unless you've blown up some sort of awareness of your brand prior to trying to sell it. But I just think the world's changed. People buy things in a different way, don't they? Consumers.
Thank you, Mark.
Hi, so I have a question. Excuse me. So I've listened and heard what you've said with interest. I'm a startup brand. Background slightly similar to you, Mark. I've come from a chain of waxing salons, and we've developed our own range of waxing and hair removal aftercare. But it's very chicken and egg product development, isn't it? Because our brand isn't established yet, so I'm obviously not manufacturing in huge quantities, so there's no profit. So, do you know what I mean? If I price properly, I've got a trade price to sell into other salons, but the margins on that are so low because my manufacturing price is higher because at the level I'm currently producing. And I'm not quite sure how to get over that.
Going back to what Pierre-Louis was saying as well about margin. I think when you start off, you've almost got to be prepared that the margin is low. And that was certainly the case for us as well. And I found just as we were improving our margin, and at the end of 2019, after almost 10 years of being in existence, I was thinking, this is going pretty well. And then COVID came along, and the pricing was all out. Everything, the cost of raw materials, packaging, repositioning the model. So things like that will come along as well. But I do think, you've got a good product, you believe in it. You've got to be prepared for that low margin thing at the beginning until you can up the quantities. And the right thing always presents itself. I think it goes back to that persistence thing of keeping going.
A lot of it is in that modeling as well of how many units to break even. And that helps you, I think, in the long run of determining how much am I going to slog through this? What low margin can I hold on to for a while? Or do I fish or cut bait? So there are many things. And the challenge is ensuring that you've got customers, number one, that they like your product, that they can promote it, and how long you're going to get to that break-even spot. And finance it.
One of the challenge of the professional beauty market is that it's a very costly business model. Okay, why it's costly? Because the distribution is very fragmented. Okay, you can never deal with a big guy that will ensure a lot of volume. It's door per door, and usually the turnover per door is not huge. Okay, so it's a very long process. It takes time, and what takes time costs money. And then you have the education that you need to do in addition to that slow-moving developments. So this is why, in my opinion, and it's true when you look at the prices, a new brand can hardly have a premium price strategy. Okay, because in this market, if you don't have so there is low premium, mid premium, and high premium, but at least a premium price strategy with an added value. Otherwise, as you are saying, it's a chicken and egg. And you will lose your energy at one stage because you cannot solve the equation, maybe short term, but not for the long term. So it's really a market where you really need to add value to justify to your network and to the end customer that this added value has a price. And a good example is pharmacies. When you look at pharmacies, there is a huge network, there are huge volumes, but the average price in pharmacies is much lower. Okay, so there is a logic between who you sell to, how the distribution is organized, what margin you need to give them, the turnover per door, and your price positioning. So it's like an equation you have to be clear about, but it has to be premium.
We've come to the end of our session. Maybe a final quick thought from each of our panelists.
I think, we covered it all, and I think it's really a question of it's not pricing is not the funniest part of a job. I'm sure about it, and I think to create. I love people. I look at the love of brand, and I'm happy to see people creating new brands. But sometimes when I look at the brand, I think, oh my God. And I see the price and say, oh my God, it will never work. And I don't say anything. I just keep it for me because I go back and calculate and I think, okay, it won't work. It's not possible to work. So this is something, yes, at the end of the day, it's not funny, but it's a part of it. It's part of a game.
One good closing thought, and I remember when we first arrived in America some years ago, the first distributor we started working with, it got on great with this guy. And we talked about loads of products, including our own. And he kept saying that old cliche of you've got to be first, better, or different. And everyone I met, whether it was somebody helping us finance it or anybody I met in every sector, the question people would always say is, what's different about what you do? How unique is it? And over a period of time, that's the thing that's become the most important. And a lot of the questions there that we've asked and the topics we've talked about, the key to unlocking a lot of those challenges is your product being unique or having a unique story. And I just remember this guy drumming, first, better, or different. And when anybody shows me anything now, I think subconsciously I'm thinking, is this first, better, or different? So it's just a great thing to have at the back of your mind. That would be my closing thought. But thank you. Appreciate you inviting us here today.
And yes, and personally, I think it's a very complicated topic, but it's fascinating, okay? Because it's one of the few things where you need to have a kind of strategic marketing hat, a sales development hat, a financial hat, and a bit of a mid to long-term vision. So as a CEO or as a leader of your company, it's one of the topics which are intellectually complicated, interesting, and vital for your strategy. Of course, there is the product mix, and the positioning, but this topic is endless and very, very interesting, but needs a lot of thoughts. And at the end of the day, you will have to make trade-offs. You will have to make a decision.